Immersive training gives us the opportunity to learn things faster and to retain them longer and to access things like socio-emotional learning more unlike any other tool.
One of the most difficult challenges for a caregiver is to understand life from the perspective of the person receiving care, both physiologically and psychologically. How do they see? How do they feel? And what's their perspective on the world? Understanding life as they experience it can be the key to offering the best support. On the latest UpTech Report, I talk with Carrie Shaw, whose company, Embodied Labs, is helping caregivers experience the world almost literally through the eyes of the people needing care by using virtual reality. Carrie believes it can change the way we care for people in need of life assistance. Carrie, I'm excited to be with you and to dig more into Embodied Labs and the problem that you are solving. To begin, can you describe your company and the purpose of it in a very brief 5 seconds? What would you say?
Embodied Labs is a company that puts you into the perspectives of people that are different ages, races, genders than your own, and lets you experience health conditions from perspectives you could otherwise never see.
And the name is quite appropriate then, to be embodied in another perspective and
Yep.
using immersive reality for it. How long then has this been? About 4 years since it began. And this is your first venture that you've led?
It is, yeah. So we are coming up on our official 4-year anniversary next month. My first ever startup company that I've founded. And as a team and as a concept, it's been much longer than that.
The initial problem that you saw, where were you, and what did you realize that this needs to be changed, this needs to be fixed?
Yeah, the first time I realized that there was a spark for this problem was when I was taking care of my mom. She had early onset Alzheimer's disease, and I was living at the time at home with her as her caregiver. And so my mom, as her disease got worse, it caused her brain to give her this weird visual impairment. And this is just one example of a few things that happened, but I was always trying to think like, what is she seeing, and why does she do what she does? And then as we were all trying to care for her, and more care team like nurses were coming to support her, I realized that I could simulate what her visual impairment was, which was this left visual field defect. And I got so tired of explaining what it was, but I made goggles like this, and I just taped off the left halves, and then it let us see what she was seeing. And so from putting these on, we could immediately intuit why it was that if someone came at me from this side, I couldn't see that they're there. And then I realized I had this discovery, like, this is why she eats exactly half of her plate of food every time at dinner. And if I don't rotate the plate, she's not going to see the food and eat it. And so we could step into her perspective, and then we could learn better care practices and feel more connected to her experience, and then enable ourselves to be better care providers. And that just made me wonder, what else could we do that goes way beyond the simplicity of just a vision impairment.
So from there, you go off and start doing your research and get into the academic side. How did that lead to then starting a business and solving?
Yeah, it was a winding path. If you had asked me a decade ago if I found a tech startup company, I would have laughed. I probably wouldn't have said anything. And so when I went to get a master's of science in biomedical visualization, this question that the goggles sparked was staying with me. And I just wondered how, as we combine visuals and art and science, how do we think about human health in ways we haven't seen before? And so this question became this overarching thesis for my research, and I had no idea how I was going to solve it. But I thought, well, maybe we could simulate things through a desktop, and we could use emotionally intelligent avatars, and we could research what a person's going through and recreate that experience through their eyes in a scientifically accurate way. And through that, I discovered what we use now today, which is immersive technology. And I realized through learning about it that immersive training gives us the opportunity to learn things faster and to retain them longer and to access things like socio-emotional learning more unlike any other tool. And so I met my now co-founder, at the time was a classmate, and we started prototyping how could we blend live action film and gaming engine interactivity together using voice and hands as the way we engage with the world to actually train people through these simulated experiences.
The journey, as you said, is a long, winding road, but you came to then saying immersive experiences, that is the way to train and to really embody yourself in another person's experience and learn from there. So this journey, give me a real world example then of right now, how you're helping another company, probably in the healthcare is where you're mainly focused. Tell me an exact use case and one of the demos that you do.
Yeah. So we have a lot of customers that all are in the healthcare services space. We have academic institutions that integrate Embodied Labs into their training programs. We have corporate clients who serve older adults and they use this to train their employees. We also have lots of senior services groups like a home care agency, a hospice, or a senior living community that uses this and training their staff and actually as community education. But one of my favorite examples and where we've really grown is that we work with several municipal governments, their divisions of adult protective services, and this group called Area Agencies on Aging, which is in nearly every county of the United States. And we've been working with these groups where they take Embodied Labs and they champion the technology, the hardware, and they enable our software platform to train their social workers, their nurses, their community educators. They will also use this to then go out into the community and provide this in support groups for older adults that are care providers themselves to a partner or a loved one. So I guess if I had to pick one group to highlight, it would definitely be the municipal government groups that we work with.
Your business model, is it a software as a service where there's a subscription monthly fee?
Yep, there is.
And
Yeah,
are
mhm.
you constantly then having creating new content? And is that basically they're subscribing to that content and then the hardware themselves, they take care of, or you can help them facilitate the purchase of that?
Yeah, exactly. So we constantly have a growing portfolio of training experiences. Some that we have now deal with embodying what it's like to live with macular degeneration and hearing loss through the perspective of an African American man who may be dealing with things like dementia or depression. So you go from being at his birthday party to talking with your family about healthcare to going on a doctor's visit. Another example is one we have where you go through this journey of living with early, middle, and late stages of Alzheimer's disease. And you do that through embodying Beatrice, who's a Mexican American woman, and her daughter, her adult daughter and grandson live with her. We have other labs that focus on what it's like to go through an end of life situation as a veteran with a cancer diagnosis. And then ones that deal with Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia and contextualize through what it's like to be a Lebanese American woman who's living with her family and trying to figure out if she should stay at home or move into a community care setting. And then actually we've just launched into June, which is Pride Month, and on June 30th, we'll be launching our next lab where you embody different perspectives in the LGBTQ community and really understand what it's like to grow old from those perspectives. And every year we launch multiple labs, and the way we decide is really by listening to what the needs are of the 150 organizations we serve, and are able to really then pull and say, what are the biggest needs for training in this format from these subscribers?
Digging in a bit more to that technology side, obviously virtual reality is constantly improving. So what are some of the hardware that you support, and what do you see kind of coming up next that you're going to focus even more on?
Yeah, I think you asked it earlier if we ever get involved with the hardware, and we do if our customers want to get hardware through our partners. We have a turnkey way that we can get people set up. So they might get this in the mail, but they have everything they need to not know anything about VR and just get it going. In the past, and we're still agnostic in terms of serving any kind of desktop ready VR setup. So a lot of schools will already have VR labs and they'll just purchase the software. But yeah, I mean, what's happened recently is we've had the announcement. I'm actually holding up a Samsung Odyssey, which is an older headset, but now we have the Oculus Quest, which just announced that hand tracking is out of beta. Some other big announcements, and we will be updating to be available on Quest as well later this year. And we really think about implementation in a creative way. So we enable our customers to own the end-to-end experience of how they themselves do these trainings. We're not there running implementation. And so we've created lots of modalities to not just train one-to-one, but one-to-many. And so that kind of keeps us meeting our customers where they're at and really being creative about how we think about the use of the hardware.
The concept of this virtual training, I imagine, is only going to increase. But what kind of the kind of next steps do you see for your company that you're going to moving forward with, of whether it's growth in new ways or integrations that you can share?
Yeah, well, beyond continuing to create the most relevant training programs in the headset, we have so many things in the pipeline for how to really share back the value of these experiences. So when we think about why immersive and what our stakeholders need to see, and those stakeholders can range from the end user who's getting trained to the training coordinator to the decision makers like the chief financial officer. We've always been very careful to look at value-based metrics of what did people learn, what behaviors are they changing, how is their job satisfaction changing, and levels of burnout over time. And so as we develop our iterations of our platform, those kinds of metrics of success are something that we're evolving with the ability of the hardware to capture the data in the headset and just seamlessly report it out and give us insights, again, that unlike any other tool, immersive can deliver.
Do you see the adoption increasing now? People are just more comfortable with VR and AR, especially with now we're going more digital and disconnected because of COVID. But do you see that adoption changing?
I hope so. I think with, one of the very big advantages, and like nice to have an advantage in the same sentence as COVID because it's been horrible. But one thing COVID has done is shown us that technology has a role, and adopting it now means we're more prepared for the futures that we all want. So, as we go forward, we've seen that campuses that might be remote, or companies that are saying we might never go back and train like we were on site, or we'll do some kind of blended format. More than ever, they're looking at how to do that well. I mean, we can't be looking at webinars and long presentations and recordings forever. We need dynamic tools that we can send to people to do in their homes, or some of the ways we've created it, distance immersive learning, where you're still getting involved with an immersive experience no matter where you are in space. And so I think the adoption of immersive is reaching this point where we can all see why immersive, and it's our job as the companies to help give our customers that entry pathway in, knowing that it's not going to just happen tomorrow.
What's a good first step that people can take, and where can they go to learn more?
Yeah, so to learn more about Embodied Labs, our website is embodiedlabs.com. We post a lot of case studies and have done a series of webinars actually since COVID-19 over the last 3 months, and we'll continue this month, have had amazing thought leadership of how we think about aging care and what kinds of needs we have to overcome these barriers of supporting older adults. And so I would say it's, for Embodied Labs specifically, looking at the resources on our website are a really great place to start.
Be sure to check out the second part of my conversation with Carrie, in which she talks about her remarkable journey from conceptualizing the business to winning a startup competition, which led to securing millions in VC funding.